The first time humans were invited to the Interspecies Expo, most of the galaxy didn't expect much from them. To many starfaring civilizations, humans were still seen as newcomers who barely understood the vastness of the cosmos. Even though humanity had built ships capable of crossing light years, many aliens continued to treat them like harmless beginners, stumbling into a world far larger than they could imagine. The expo was held on a huge space station that circled a blue-white star. It was filled with glowing pathways, floating exhibits, and creatures from so many worlds that even the most open-minded visitors often stopped to stare. Every species came here to show what they were proud of: technology, culture, abilities, and creatures that existed so far away from human imagination that they could only be described in stories. Got among the visitors walking through the tall gates was a small human family. The parents were invited as part of Earth's scientific team, and with them came their young daughter. She was curious about everything, always staring with wide eyes at anything unfamiliar. Her parents didn't want to leave her behind on Earth, so they brought her along, expecting she would just stay close and observe quietly. But curiosity spread through her like a spark. She wanted to see everything for herself. She wanted to understand why everyone said humans were so far behind. She wanted to know what made other species so confident that they were superior. She didn't feel scared, only excited, because the entire station looked like a giant dream floating in space. As the humans stepped inside the central hall, dozens of alien eyes turned toward them. Some stared out of simple curiosity, but others had a hint of amusement. Whispered words floated through the air, carried by voices that sounded like wind, metal, birdsong, or soft mechanical tones. "They are so small. They look softer than I expected. How do they survive their own planet?" Several aliens laughed lightly. They weren't trying to be cruel, but the joke was clear. Humans were seen as weak. Humans were seen as inexperienced. Humans were the little children of the galaxy who had somehow managed to join the adults. The human adults ignored the comments. They pretended not to hear. They walked with polite smiles and calm steps, hoping to show dignity. But the young girl heard everything. She wasn't angry. She didn't understand why other species thought humans were weak. She had seen brave people on Earth, people who protected, invented, explored, and healed. She had seen humans climb mountains, sail oceans, and face storms. She didn't know why aliens couldn't see that. She kept walking with her parents while gazing at the massive halls. Some aliens had bodies that shimmered like liquid silver. Others had wings that glowed with soft colors. Some were tall and thin like moving shadows, while others were short and bright like living lanterns. There were beings made of crystal, beings who walked on many legs, and beings who floated instead of standing. The expo had a peaceful atmosphere. Soft music played from floating speakers. The air smelled clean and slightly sweet because the station adjusted its environment to keep most species comfortable. Display screens floated like bubbles, showing simple explanations of different booths. There were sections for art, science, medicine, history, and one special area that many visitors found the most exciting. An area that displayed rare creatures from all across the galaxy was the section that always drew the biggest crowds. The young girl noticed the sign for the creature area and tugged gently at her parent's sleeve. She didn't speak loudly. She just looked up with a hopeful expression. Her parents exchanged a quick look. They knew the area was safe because security around dangerous creatures was extremely strict. After a moment, they nodded and allowed her to walk with them toward the crowd. As they approached, the noise grew louder. Aliens from dozens of worlds gathered in front of a large viewing platform. Some looked excited, some nervous, some eager to boast about what they already knew. Floating holograms showed warning signs in many languages, all translating into the same message: This area contains dangerous life forms. Please maintain distance. The girl squeezed through a gap between taller aliens until she could see the enclosure clearly. She didn't push anyone. She was simply small enough to slip through without being noticed. She stood near the front, looking at the glowing barrier that separated visitors from whatever creature was hidden inside. The shadowy space. A group of tall, blue-skinned aliens stood beside her, speaking loudly on purpose because a few humans were nearby. They should keep their children far away from this place. One of them said. Another replied, "Humans forget how weak they are. They think their curiosity is courage." The girl heard them, but she didn't react. She wasn't thinking about their comments anymore. Her eyes were fixed on the dark enclosure. She waited silently, expecting something extraordinary to appear. A deep metallic voice echoed through the hall. It belonged to the announcer, a multi-voiced creature whose throat made several sounds at once. "Visitors, prepare to witness the most feared predator from the Crinter system." The crowd leaned forward. "Stand back," the announcer continued in many languages at once. "This creature is known as the HFY Feline. It has survived environments where even armored hunters fall. Its instincts are unmatched. Its reflexes surpass most known species. It is the deadliest feline life form recorded in the past century." The crowd murmured with excitement. Some lifted their devices to take recordings. Others braced themselves for a roar or sudden movement. The glowing barrier brightened. A shape moved inside. Slowly, a massive feline creature stepped forward. It was larger than any earth animal the girl had ever seen. Its fur was dark and sleek, yet faintly reflective, like polished stone. Its eyes glowed with an intelligent, almost painful sharpness. Its back held faint ridges that rose and lowered with every breath, and its long tail moved slowly, almost nervously. The aliens around the girl whispered proudly, "Look how powerful it is. Even our best fighters cannot stand before it. A human could never go near it." Several turned to the humans behind them with amused smiles, waiting to see their reaction. They loved showing off creatures that proved their strength and experience. To them, this was a reminder that humans were still too fragile for the galaxy's real dangers. But the girl wasn't frightened. She wasn't impressed by its size or its glowing eyes. She noticed something different. While the crowd admired how fearsome the creature looked, she saw a small tremble run through its shoulders. The feline didn't look furious. It didn't look ready to attack. It looked like something that had been moved from one place to another too many times. Something confused by constant light and unfamiliar faces. Something tired. Instead of danger. She saw sadness. Her parents walked up behind her and rested their hands on her shoulders. They tried to keep her close in case she felt overwhelmed, but she didn't move. She was focused on the creature, studying it carefully. The feline turned its head slightly and blinked. Almost as if sensing her gaze, the announcer continued describing its physical abilities, its terrifying speed, and the reasons it was one of the most feared creatures in the galaxy. The aliens around her listened with admiration and pride, enjoying every detail. That made them seem powerful for capturing and displaying such a being. But the girl didn't think about strength or weakness. She thought about how the creature must feel being watched all the time. She wondered how long it had been kept like this. She wondered whether it had a home, a family, or a place where it felt safe. One of the blue-skinned aliens laughed loudly and said, "I doubt humans can even stand near the barrier without shaking. They are simply not built for such dangers." Another replied, "They come from a small world. They still act like newborns learning to walk." The girl looked up at them for one moment. She didn't argue. She didn't defend humanity. She simply returned her attention to the creature. Because she knew she wasn't afraid of it. It was just an animal. and she had always understood animals better than most people. Her parents sensed her interest and leaned down to speak softly to her, telling her not to get too close. But she didn't step back. She stayed where she was, watching the creature with steady, gentle eyes. The crowd continued to admire the predator, but no one noticed what the girl had already seen, how the creature kept glancing toward her instead of the aliens around it, how its body language changed slightly when she looked at it, how its tail moved slower, calmer, as if her presence felt different from everyone else's. The expo was full of flashing lights, loud voices, and colorful displays, but in that moment, the girl could only hear the quiet breathing of the creature behind the barrier. She didn't know what would happen later. She didn't know that aliens who mocked humans would soon fall silent because of what she would do. She didn't know that she would change how the entire hall viewed humanity. All she knew was that the creature wasn't as dangerous as they claimed. It was simply misunderstood. And in her young heart, she felt something important. She felt like this creature needed kindness more than fear. When the crowd finally settled, the announcer dimmed lights around the enclosure so visitors could observe the creature more clearly. The HFY Feline stepped into the center of the space, its paws moving lightly across the ground as if it were walking on soft dust instead of metal flooring. The glowing barrier around the enclosure shimmered with faint ripples, reminding everyone how strong it was. No force from inside or outside could break it, at least according to the guards stationed nearby. The young human girl stood silently among the tall aliens. Even though she was surrounded by strange shapes, tall figures, glowing eyes, and voices she had never heard on Earth, she did not shrink back. Her parents stayed close behind her, but she didn't rely on them for courage. Her attention stayed fixed on the creature that everyone else feared. The aliens beside her began talking again, pointing at the feline with pride. One swipe from that creature could break through solid stone. One of them said. Another added, "Our hunters trained for years to face it, yet they still approach with full protection." A third laughed softly. "And yet humans stand here with no armor at all." How interesting. The girl didn't respond. She didn't feel offended. She simply didn't see the creature the same way they did. The HFY Feline lifted its head slightly. Its eyes were deep and bright, but there was something tired in them, something that made the girl feel like it was not dangerous at all, just overwhelmed. It glanced around at the crowd, then lowered its head again, almost as though it wished everyone would stop staring. The announcer continued explaining the creature's abilities, going into great detail about its senses, its speed, how it could jump higher than most beings could imagine. The crowd gasped and excitedly whispered each time the announcer revealed another impressive detail. Aliens seemed eager to show off how well they understood the creature, as if that knowledge made them superior. But the girl watched the feline in a different way. She noticed small things, how its ears twitched not in aggression, but in discomfort, how its tail brushed the ground like it was trying to calm itself. Even the way it breathed suggested it was not looking for a fight. Instead, it seemed like a traveler who had been moved from place to place without rest. Her parents pointed out some details to her, explaining quietly what the holograms on the walls meant. But the girl only nodded politely. Her thoughts were somewhere else. She wondered if the creature had been taken from its home against its wishes. She wondered if anyone here had tried to understand what the creature needed, instead of focusing on how dangerous it looked. She leaned a little closer to the barrier, still careful to keep a respectful distance. The glow from the field reflected in her eyes as she studied the creature. It noticed her movement and turned its gaze toward her again, watching her with slow, curious blinking instead of the sharp attention it gave everyone else. A group of tall, silver-skinned aliens standing behind her began laughing. One of them said loudly, "Look at the small human." Does she think staring will make the creature like her? Another replied, humans are always like this, too confident for their own good. But the girl didn't care. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't pretending to be brave. She was simply paying attention to what others ignored. The announcer tapped the control panel, and a hologram appeared above the enclosure, showing the creature's natural environment. It lived in dense forests on a planet with heavy rainfall and bright blue trees. The hologram showed the feline running through its home, chasing beams of light that filtered through the leaves. It looked strong, fast, and proud, but the creature inside the enclosure didn't look anything like that version of itself. It looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in the way its spirit felt. The girl whispered softly to herself, "It misses home." Her parents heard her, but didn't comment. They knew she had a unique way of understanding animals. Even on Earth, she had a calm presence that made animals approach her easily. It wasn't magic. It wasn't training. It was simply the way she existed, quiet, gentle, and patient. She watched as the creature's tail flicked again. It wasn't irritated. It was anxious. She saw the subtle shift in its posture, the small way its shoulders hunched, the way it avoided eye contact with most aliens, but kept returning its gaze to her. One guard near the enclosure noticed the girl standing so close and stepped forward carefully. He didn't scold her, but he offered a polite suggestion. "Young human, please keep a small distance. The creature can sense emotion strongly." The girl looked up at him and nodded, taking a half step back. She wasn't upset. She understood he was only doing his job, but something interesting happened. As soon as she moved away, the feline's ears lowered slightly, and its glowing eyes followed her movement. It took a small step toward the barrier, as if trying to keep her in sight. The guard noticed this and blinked in surprise. "That's unusual," he murmured to himself. One of the aliens overheard and frowned. "What is unusual?" The guard answered quietly. "It doesn't usually pay attention to anyone. This is different." The aliens shrugged, brushing off the comment. They went back to laughing and making proud remarks about their own species' ability to capture and display the creature. The girl continued to watch the feline, and slowly, she began to understand something. The creature wasn't showing fear because of danger. It was showing fear because it felt alone. Its eyes darted around the room, never settling on any of the aliens who stood proudly speaking about their strength. But when its gaze returned to the girl, its body relaxed just a little. Its breathing became steadier. Its tail moved slower, as if her presence reminded it of something gentle from its own world. The girl whispered again, barely loud enough for even her parents to hear. "It's scared." Her mother leaned down and asked softly, "How do you know?" The girl didn't answer with facts. She didn't describe behavior patterns. She simply said, "I can feel it." Her mother didn't argue. She knew her daughter had a special way of sensing things others. DID and single quotes T. Another alien walked toward the barrier and tried to get the creature's attention by tapping on the glowing field. A feline immediately flinched, stepping back into the shadows. The aliens laughed as if it were funny, but the girl felt her chest tighten with discomfort. "It doesn't like loud sounds," she whispered. The announcer noticed the creature retreating and tried to encourage it to come forward again. He turned on a soft light and activated the recorded environment sound from its home planet. Slowly, the creature stepped forward once more. The crowd clapped quietly, impressed by how well the station controlled the environment to calm the creature. But the girl understood that it wasn't the lights or the recorded sounds that drew the creature out. Something else was helping it feel a little safer. Its eyes found hers again, and she held its gaze with a calm confidence that didn't come from trying to be brave. It came naturally. The creature lowered itself onto the ground, resting its head near the barrier. The rippling glow of the field touched its snout, making small sparks of light dance across its fur. The feline wasn't showing aggression at all. Its eyes softened in a way that surprised even the guards. One of the aliens whispered, "Why is it behaving like that?" Another answered, "Maybe the programming changed." But the girl knew the truth. It wanted to near someone who didn't fear it. It wanted to be near someone who looked at it not as a monster, but as a living being. The girl stepped forward again, slowly, carefully, and the creature's tail moved gently across the ground. A behavior the announcer had earlier described as rare, something the creature only did when it felt safe. The aliens who had mocked humans earlier now watched with confused expressions. They exchanged glances, unsure why the creature seemed more comfortable with a human child than with them. Her father leaned down and whispered, "Do you want to go somewhere quieter? This area is loud." But the girl shook her head softly. She wanted to stay. She wanted to understand the creature more. She wanted to know why it seemed drawn to her. And deep down, she wanted to help it. She didn't know how yet, but something inside her told her that she would play a part in something important. Something that would silence the mocking voices, not because she wanted to prove anything, but because the truth would reveal itself in its own time. The Vraltha feline blinked slowly, a sign of trust in many feline species. And without realizing it, the girl blinked back in the same slow, gentle way. That simple moment, unnoticed by most of the crowd, changed the entire atmosphere around them. It was the beginning of something none of the aliens expected, something that would make them rethink everything they believed about humans. And it all started with the quiet bond forming between a human child and the galaxy's most feared feline. The moment the Vraltha feline lowered itself toward the barrier, a soft wave of surprise moved through the crowd. Aliens exchanged puzzled looks, whispering among themselves, trying to understand why the creature behaved so gently when a human child was near. The girl didn't notice the reactions around her. She was too focused on the creature, watching it with a calm expression that made her seem older than she really was. Her parents stayed close, ready to pull her back if anything changed, but they could see that something unusual was happening. Most visitors had expected the creature to roar or pace or jump, but instead it had grown quiet, almost peaceful. The girl stepped a tiny bit closer, stopping only when she felt the warmth of the glowing barrier reflect onto her face. The feline's eyes followed her movement, not sharply, but slowly, like it was trying to study her the same way she studied it. Its glowing pupils grew softer, shifting from intense brightness to a calm, steady glow. For a creature known across the galaxy as fierce and hard to tame, this gentle posture shocked even the guards. An alien standing nearby pointed at the girl and said loudly, "How is that human not frightened? Even our strongest warriors keep their distance." Another answered, "Maybe she doesn't understand the danger." But the girl understood more than they did. She recognized the creature's fear, its loneliness, the heavy exhaustion in its movements. She wasn't scared because she wasn't looking at a monster. She was looking at an animal that wanted to be understood. The announcer noticed the creature's unusual behavior and hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should continue his speech or call for security. He watched the girl, watched the creature, then glanced at the worried guards. The guards stepped closer, their hands hovering near the control panels, ready to activate emergency protocols. The girl's mother gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay close," she whispered. She didn't order her daughter to step back. She simply wanted her to be safe. But the girl didn't move away. She stayed still, giving the creature a look full of quiet trust. The feline's ears twitched, leaning slightly forward. It seemed drawn to the peaceful energy the girl gave off. It moved another step toward the barrier. The glowing field flickered for a second, and several aliens gasped. But the creature didn't scratch, didn't growl, didn't show signs of aggression. It simply wanted to close to her. The girl's attention never broke. Her breathing stayed steady. She felt something inside her, something like a soft tug, as if the creature wanted to communicate in a way that didn't need words. The girl whispered softly, so quietly only her parents heard, "It's okay. I'm here." Her mother looked at her with surprise. She had heard Hodor talk to animals before, but never like this. There was something different in her voice, gentler, deeper, full of real empathy. It wasn't childish bravery. It was something older, something instinctive. The aliens around them leaned in, curious. They had laughed earlier, but now their expressions changed. Some looked interested, some confused. Some even looked uncomfortable because they couldn't explain the creature's calm behavior. One of the tall, blue-skinned aliens spoke again. "Maybe the creature is simply tired," he suggested, though his uncertain tone revealed he didn't believe his own words. Another shook his head. "No, this is different. It's reacting to her." The girl took one slow breath and placed her hand near the barrier, not touching it, but hovering close enough that the warmth from the glowing field met her palm. The feline leaned even closer, pressing its snout gently against the barrier. A soft gasp echoed through the hall. Her parents froze. The guard closest to the barrier swallowed nervously and held up a hand to signal his team to stay ready, but not to intervene. He recognized the creature's posture. It was not preparing to attack. It was building trust. The announcer stepped away from his podium for a moment, watching silently. Even he could feel that something historic was unfolding. The girl slowly crouched down to be eye level with the creature. Her knees touched the cool floor. Her breathing stayed light and steady. The creature responded by lowering itself too, stretching its neck forward until its glowing snout was as close to the barrier as possible. She whispered again, "You're not scary." "Not to me." Her voice was so soft that only the creature seemed to react to it. Its tail swayed gently across the ground. Its ears relaxed. Its body language shifted from nervous to curious. Everyone in the hall watched without blinking. The girl reached out slowly, inch by inch, careful not to make any sudden movements. She didn't know what would happen if she touched the barrier, but she felt she needed to at least try to comfort the creature. Her hand hovered just a few inches from the glowing field. At that exact moment, a group of aliens entered the hall from the far side. They were dressed in formal armor and carried badges showing they were officials from the Quinter system, the species that originally discovered the Vraltha feline. They walked with confident steps, proud of the creature that represented their system's survival and strength. One of them spotted the girl near the barrier and frowned. He hurried forward, pushing through the crowd. "Move the human child back," he ordered sharply. "She should not be this close." The guard hesitated. He had seen how the creature responded to the girl, and he wasn't sure forcing her to step away was the right decision. But the Quintarian official grew impatient and repeated loudly, "Do you not understand the risk? This feline is a danger to all of us." His raised voice startled the creature. The feline flinched. Its ears pulled back. Its tail stiffened. The girl felt its fear immediately. Without thinking, she looked up at the official and said quietly, "Please don't shout. It doesn't like loud sounds." The entire hall went silent. A few aliens blinked in shock. A human child, had spoken to an alien official with calm confidence. Not rudeness, not fear, just simple, honest clarity. The official stared at the girl for a long moment. His expression softened slightly, though he still looked confused. He stepped back a little, lowering his voice. The guards relaxed. The girl's attention returned to the creature. She placed her hand even closer to the barrier. The feline responded by lowering its head until its glowing snout rested directly against the field again. This time, the barrier flickered more visibly. A soft humming sound came from the control panels. The guard looked at the readings and whispered, "The barrier energy is reacting to them both." No one understood what that meant, but everyone could see it with their own eyes. The barrier glowed brighter around the girl's hand and around the creature's snout, as if there was some kind of emotional connection that the field couldn't fully regulate. The girl slowly lifted her other hand and placed it closer too, letting the light fall over her fingers. The creature blinked softly. It did something none of the aliens had ever seen before. Instead of growling or acting dominant, it gently pressed its snout forward and exhaled in a calm, almost trusting way. The girl felt the warmth through the barrier. She felt the creature's breath even though the field blocked physical contact. It was like the creature was saying, "I know you're not here to hurt me." Suddenly, the crowd wasn't whispering anymore. They weren't mocking humans. They weren't laughing. They were silent. They were watching something they didn't understand, something they had never expected to see. The girl saw the creature's trembling finally stop. She saw its shoulders relax. She saw the anxiety fade from its glowing eyes. Her parents looked at her with awe, unable to explain how their daughter had done something no expert could achieve. The announcer took a step forward, speaking softly into his microphone now. "For the first time in recorded history," he said, "the Vralfa feline is showing voluntary calm behavior in a crowded environment." Aliens looked around, shocked. Some whispered, "But why with a human child?" Others murmured, "Humans were supposed to be weak." The young girl didn't think about any of that. She wasn't making a statement. She wasn't trying to prove anything. She was simply being herself, someone who saw the creature as lonely instead of dangerous. The feline moved even closer, pressing its snout more firmly against the flickering barrier. A small spark of soft light glowed between the creature and the girl's hand. She didn't pull away. She smiled gently, a warm, honest smile that reached her eyes. And for the first time since being brought into the expo, the creature stopped trembling completely. It trusted her. It needed her. And as she stayed there, kneeling quietly, the entire hall felt something shift, like the beginning of a moment that would change everything the galaxy believed about humans. And she had no idea how far this simple act would go, only that she wasn't going to step back now. A deep silence that fills the clearing where the human and the alien wolf stand together. The wind has slowed, the drifting dust has settled, and for a moment it feels like the entire night is listening. The wolf, who once carried the weight of exile on her shoulders, now stands tall again. Her eyes, once dim with fear and loneliness, hold a new fire. Yet there is still something that troubles her, something she keeps locked deep inside, and the human can sense it from the way she keeps glancing toward the distant mountains. He doesn't push her to talk. He has already learned that her world does not work the same way his does. Her people speak in layers, part words, part instinct, part emotion. Sometimes silence says more than anything spoken aloud. So he waits, letting her decide when she wants to share what is weighing on her heart. The night sky grows darker, and the moon rises behind the jagged peaks, casting long shadows across the land. The wolf moves her head slightly, as if checking that no one is watching them. Then she slowly sits beside him. It is the first time she sits so close, without fear or hesitation. It tells him that she finally trusts him, perhaps more deeply than she has ever trusted anyone outside her species. After a long pause, she finally speaks, her voice low and careful. She tells him that she was not just exiled, she was framed. Someone in the Galactic Empire set her up, someone powerful, someone who did not want her to rise through the ranks or uncover the truth behind a larger conspiracy. She explains that she was once part of a royal guardian unit, a group responsible for protecting the highest leaders of her world. But one night, everything changed. A terrible accident occurred, one that she had no part in, yet she was blamed for it in front of the entire council. She tried to defend herself, but no one listened. The order came swiftly, and she was banished to the far reaches of space with no trial and no chance to speak again. The human listens carefully, his brows tightening as he absorbs every detail. His chest grows heavy because he understands what it feels like to be blamed for something you didn't do. He has seen his fellow soldiers go through it. He knows how easily truth can get buried when powerful people want it gone. When she finishes speaking, she lowers her gaze, expecting him to turn away or fall silent like everyone else did. But he doesn't. Instead, he turns slightly toward her and tells her that he believes her. His voice is calm but steady, and for a moment she freezes, almost as if she didn't understand what he said. No one had believed her story since the day she was exiled. Hearing those words almost breaks something inside her, a barrier she didn't even know she was still holding. She takes a slow breath, her shoulders relaxing as she processes the comfort in his tone. For the first time since she was thrown out of her home, she feels seen not as a monster, not as a threat, not as a rejected soldier, but as a being who deserves truth and justice. However, believing her is one thing. Helping her return is something far more dangerous. She knows the Empire will not welcome her back. In fact, they might attack anyone who stands beside her. That is why she hesitates when she tells the human what she wants next. She wants to go back, but she says it with the trembling voice of someone who fears the answer. He looks at her for a long moment. Instead of backing away or offering empty comfort, he simply says that if she wants to return, he will go with her. She turns sharply toward him, shocked. She had expected him to walk away or tell her that this was too big, too risky. She had not expected a human someone smaller, physically weaker, someone who owes her nothing, to offer help in such a way. But he means it. He has already made up his mind. There is a part of him that refuses to let injustice stand. He feels an instinctive pull to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Maybe it comes from his years of service. Maybe it comes from his own scars. Whatever the reason, he knows he cannot leave her alone in this fight. Still, she warns him. She explains that the Empire does not take kindly to those who challenge its decisions. She tells him that her species fights with tooth, claw, and instinct honed through generations. The enemies they might face will not hesitate to strike. If he goes with her, he may not return home. The human listens to everything she says, and then he answers with quiet certainty. He tells her that he is not afraid of danger if the cause is right. He tells her that her exile was wrong, and someone has to stand with her. And then he says something that makes her chest tighten. He says that her story matters, and she deserves to have her voice heard. This moment stays between them for a long time, sinking into the silence of the night like a promise. She has never heard a human speak like that. She has never heard anyone speak like that to her since the day she lost everything. For the first time in years, hope finds a place in her heart again. As dawn approaches, they prepare to leave the wilderness. The journey back to her homeworld will be dangerous, but they move forward with a shared determination. The human packs what little supplies he has, while the wolf guides him along hidden pathways that only her kind knows. She teaches him how to read the marks left by starships in the sky, how to move quietly through alien forests, and how to sense when danger is near. He watches carefully, learning quickly, adapting faster than she expected. His instincts impress her, and she begins to understand why humans have survived so many challenges across the galaxy. As the sun rises behind them, they walk side by side toward a future neither of them can fully predict. Along the way, he keeps asking her questions about her people, their customs, their traditions, and the beliefs she grew up with. She answers each question with patience, grateful that he genuinely wants to understand instead of judging or fearing her dot in return. She asks him about Earth, what humans eat, what music they listen to, what families look like, and what soldiers do when they are not fighting. He tells her stories of oceans that stretch farther than the eye can see, of mountains covered in snow, of small towns where people gather in quiet cafes, and of a sky so blue it almost looks painted. She listens with wide eyes, imagining a world so different from her own dot. By the time they reach the edge of the starport, their bond has grown stronger than either of them expected. They move with an unspoken understanding, each one ready to defend the other if needed. Though they face an uncertain road ahead, neither of them feels alone anymore. The starport comes into view, glowing with lines of light and the distant hum of engines charging for takeoff. She stops walking for a moment, standing still as memories flood back, some painful, some hopeful. The human steps beside her, silently offering his presence. His steady calm acts like a shield against her fears. She finally turns to him and says that whatever happens next, she is grateful he chose to walk beside her. He only nods, because sometimes words add weight when the moment needs simplicity. Together, they step toward the ship that will carry them back to the place where everything began and where everything must be set right. Soft trembling in the ground beneath their feet as the starship prepares for departure. The engines hum like a distant storm, vibrating through the metal floor plates. The human stands beside the alien wolf, both of them watching as the last passengers board the ship. She looks tense, her ears slightly back, her breathing shallow, as if every sound around her reminds her of what she is walking into. She has faced battles and harsh winters, but returning to her home after being exiled feels like facing a storm without shelter. The human sees the worry in her eyes, but doesn't say anything dramatic. Instead, he gently nudges her shoulder and reminds her that she is not returning alone. The quiet promise in his voice eases her fear. She gives a slow breath, grounding herself. She had spent years believing she would never have a chance to clear her name, never have someone stand beside her. Now everything is about to change. When they step onto the ship, the atmosphere shifts. The hallway is filled with travelers from different worlds, some tall, some scaled, some covered in bright feathers. No one pays much attention to them at first, but a few glance longer when they recognize the alien Volf species. Her kind is known across the galaxy for strength, loyalty, and sharp instincts. Seeing one in exile is unusual. Seeing one traveling with a human is even more surprising. She keeps her head low, trying not to draw attention. The human walks confidently, though he stays close to her, ready to step in if anyone tries to confront her. They find their seats near a window overlooking the stars. When the ship lifts off, the vibration shakes through their bodies. She watches the ground grow smaller, her home slipping into the distance behind them. But the human keeps his gaze forward, focused on the place they need to reach next, the core world of her people. The place where her truth was taken from her. Hours pass as the ship travels through deep space. During the journey, they talk quietly about what might happen once they arrive. She explains that the council chamber sits inside a large stone fortress, guarded by warriors trained since childhood. She doesn't know if the council will even allow her inside, let alone listen to her. But she hopes that the human's presence, proof of her innocence and her actions since exile, will give her a chance to speak again. He tells her that no matter how things unfold, he will stand beside her. The words feel steady and natural, not forced or dramatic. They are the kind of words that make someone's courage rise little by little. She nods, comforted by the strength she hears in him. When the ship finally arrives, the view outside the window shifts. Her homeworld glows beneath them, covered in silver forests and sharp mountain ranges. Wide rivers reflect the sunlight like glass. The human watches in quiet awe. Even though he came here for a serious reason, he can't ignore how beautiful the world looks. The wolf sees the wonder on his face and feels a small warmth inside her chest. She had always thought she would return with fear alone. Instead, she returns with someone who sees her world not as a place of danger, but as something worth protecting. As the ship lands, a deep horn echoes across the port. The sound vibrates through the air, signaling the arrival of an outsider ship. It is a tradition her people use to alert guards when someone from beyond the galaxy visits. They step out onto the platform, where the air feels warmer and heavier. A group of guards stands nearby, wearing dark armor and holding long metal staffs. Their eyes instantly lock onto the alien wolf. She straightens her back, standing tall despite her nervousness. The guards step forward, surrounding them in a tight formation. One of them speaks sharply, demanding to know why she has returned against the Empire's ruling. The tone is cold and suspicious, as if they expect her to attack at any moment. Before she can answer, the human steps forward. His voice is respectful, but firm as he explains that she has returned not to challenge the Empire, but to present the truth that was hidden. For a moment, the guards hesitate. They did not expect a human to defend her, especially not with such calm confidence. After exchanging looks among themselves, they finally agree to escort them to the council, though with heavy caution. Their walk through the ancient stone halls feels long and tense. Tall pillars curve upward like the ribs of a giant creature. Torches burn along the walls, giving the air a warm glow. She remembers these halls from her childhood, from her days of training, from the time when she believed she would serve her people with honor. Now every step carries the weight of her exile. At the end of the hall stands a massive metal door carved with symbols of leadership. The guards push it open, revealing the council chamber. Inside, a circle of leaders sits on high chairs made of dark stone. Their eyes are sharp and unreadable as they watch her enter. The air feels heavy, almost too thick to breathe. She bows her head respectfully, but her tail stays low, showing her uncertainty. The human stands beside her, hands relaxed at his sides, showing he is not here as a threat. One of the council members speaks first, questioning why she has broken her exile. Her voice trembles slightly, but she lifts her head and answers honestly. She explains the truth she discovered, the conspiracy that led to her being blamed, and the events she witnessed on the night of the incident. She speaks carefully, choosing her words with precision, knowing that even one mistake might destroy her only chance. The council listens silently, their expressions unreadable. When she finishes, the room falls into deep stillness. Then the human steps forward. He tells them what he saw when he found her, how she helped him and others despite carrying the pain of exile. He describes the way she protected innocent travelers, the way she refused to harm anyone, even when she was hungry or wounded. He talks about the courage she showed every day, even when no one was watching. He explains that her actions prove her true character more than any accusation ever could. The council's silence grows heavier. They look at one another, their eyes filled with cautious thought. Finally, one of the elder members asks the wolf a question so direct it cuts through the entire room. She is asked whether she still wishes to serve her people despite how they treated her. The question hits her harder than she expected. She remembers the years of loneliness, the pain of betrayal, the weight of false accusations. She also remembers the pride she once felt, the duty she carried, and the dream she had long before everything fell apart. After a long moment, she lifts her head. Her voice is steady now. She tells them that she still wishes to serve, not because they banished her, but because her people deserve truth and protection. She wants justice not just for herself, but for anyone who might be framed the way she was. The council members exchange long, thoughtful glances. Finally, the oldest member stands. His voice echoes through the chamber as he declares that she will be given a chance to prove her innocence. A full investigation will take place, and until then, she will not be treated as an exile. She is allowed to return among her people. The tension inside her breaks. Her chest rises with a shaky breath she didn't realize she was holding. The human gives her a small nod, a quiet sign that everything is going to be all right. As they walk out of the chamber, the guards who once stood against her now step aside with respect. The sunlight outside feels different, warmer, softer, like the beginning of something new. Once they reach the open courtyard, she stops and turns to the human. Her voice is gentle as she thanks him not just for standing beside her, but for believing in her when she had given up on herself. He simply smiles and says he did what anyone should do when they see someone treated unfairly. She looks at him for a long moment, realizing something important. Her story might have been full of pain, but it led her to someone who helped her stand again. And now, because of that, she will walk into a future filled with hope instead of fear. The wind sweeps across the courtyard, carrying away the last traces of her exile. Together, they walk toward the heart of her world, ready for whatever comes next, not as strangers, but as friends who changed each other's lives forever.